Welcome, Agile friends. My name's Shane Hasty, and I'm one of the hosts for the Agile Online Summit APAC online conference. And this amazing session is with my friends Craig Smith and Michael Huyhn. Craig, Michael, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Shane. Good to be here.
Likewise. Thanks, Shane.
So today we're going to talk about rethinking the Scrum Master and the Product Owner roles. There are, of course, lots of other sessions in the Agile Online Summit 2023. We're going to have some interesting conversations with people like Sandy Mamoli and others, a lot of others. And we're going to touch on many of these topics as we go through the conference. But for now, let's talk about rethinking the Scrum Master and the Product Owner role. Why?
Well, let me ask you a question, Shane, and it's a question for all of our observers as well. What if we didn't have Scrum Masters? What if we didn't have product owners? Well, here's the really controversial one that affects everybody, obviously, virtually in this room now, but everybody watching as well. What if everybody here no longer had a role? What would that world look like?
What would that world look like? Well, work would still have to be done.
Yeah, indeed. And so here's the interesting thing is that in recent times, a lot of organizations have been starting to think, whether it's been through changes in the financial world or as a result of the pandemic or all those type of things, we're starting to see the agile roles become a little less maybe needed is the word I want, maybe less valued is another way of looking at it. Lots of ways that we could look at that, but organizations making the decision that they don't need or want these roles. And sometimes that happens quite subtly where we go, look, we don't need Scrum Masters anymore. We don't need someone on every team looking after this. So maybe we'll call that role an Agile coach and have one per 3 teams or 4 teams. Or maybe we won't have a product owner anymore. Maybe we'll just have a product manager and they can look after those type of things. Or you can go to the real extreme. We've seen some organizations do this where they take anybody who's got the word Agile, Scrum in their title and completely cut them all together. And so it started to beg a bit of a question. How did we get here? And actually, what would happen, back to my original question, what would happen if we didn't have those roles? What were they really there for? And here's the interesting thing, Shane, that if you go and read most of the Agile frameworks, really there's 2 camps. You've got Scrum, which was very clear in saying, here are the 3 roles: Scrum Master, the product owner, and the team, in whatever guise or version of the book you read, but essentially the people doing the work. And every mechanism that's followed on from that has used those titles. So if you look at frameworks such as SAFe, for example, it builds on top of Scrum and will use those titles. But what if you go back and read Extreme Programming? Extreme Programming never had these roles. It did, however, say that someone does need to be they called it the coach. They did say that there needs to be a customer, a voice of the customer. So those things are important, but the roles themselves weren't important. And what's happened is, as we've industrialized agility, as we have built it into a big workhorse that we're all part of and we've all sort of benefited from, what's happened is sometimes we've commoditized these roles to the point that sometimes organizations don't really understand why they're there. But more importantly, the question we have to ask is, where is the value? If there is a role in your team, a Scrum Master, a product owner, or a similar, what is the value that role is returning? Right? Are we making things better? Right? Are we, for the cost that we're paying for that role, are we seeing that translate into our product or into productivity? Michael?
Yes, absolutely. And this is a trend that's been going on for the last sort of